My favorite video I made last year was my top 5 favorite Christopher Nolan movies, and after that video I have been thinking about doing other top 5 lists of my favorite films from my favorite directors, and one particular movie I loved last year from one of my favorite filmmakers, Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. And after I saw One Battle After Another, I was motivated to check out more of his filmography and catch up on them, either first time watches or movies I've seen bits of and now seen them in their entirety. And I am over the moon that I did a marathon of Paul Thomas Anderson. He is definitely one of my top 10 favorite directors. Actually, he could be in my top 5. He's an incredible and consistent auteur that phenomenally uses long takes, immaculately captures any time period he's doing, always gets the best out of his ensembles, and has an interesting exploration on complicated relationships. And now that he's predicted to win an overdue Oscar for One Battle After Another, I mean seriously, at the time of recording this, he has over 10 nominations, I believe 14, and hasn't won yet, and until the Oscars tomorrow night where he's predicted to win Best Director and Best Adapted Screenplay, and we'll see if it wins Best Picture. I figured with his overdue narrative, and he's finally gonna get his due, I am excited to give you my list of my top 5 favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movies. Now, like I say with every list, I know it would probably get old, but I just still want to say it time and time again. This is an entirely subjective list. These are my favorite films from Paul Thomas Anderson. If there is a movie on here you don't like or you disagree with, that's totally fine. And hey, if you're interested in checking out more of PTA's films, either you've seen one of his films or want to check out more of his films or want to do a marathon, feel free to do that. And I'm excited to hear your picks in the comments below. Do you have a top 5? You want to rank all of his movies? That's okay. Or your number 1 pick? Let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to hear them. And before we get into the top 5 list, I have 3 honorable mentions. Here they are. First one, his debut film, Hard 8. This 1996 film was an impressive debut from Paul Thomas Anderson, of this older man teaching this younger man how to gamble in casinos. And until without spoiling anything, it does take a serious turn. I was like, oh, this is what this film is about now. The movie has a great cast from the late great Philip Baker Hall, John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, Samuel L. Jackson. It may not be a memorable PTA film, but one that's definitely worth checking out to see where he started. Next up, The Master from 2012. The Master is such a complex and fascinating film, focusing on cult, psychology, purpose, and feeling lost. The cinematography is gorgeous. How it didn't get an Oscar nomination, I don't understand. Enticing dialogue, and most of all that made that movie, the exceptional performances from Joaquin Phoenix and the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman. Even if you don't like this movie, that's fine. You can't deny their performances were out of this world. Especially Joaquin Phoenix's multi-layered, interesting, out-of-control performance as Freddie Quell that definitely ranks as one of his best performances to date. And Philip Seymour Hoffman just gives a commanding presence. Just every scene, he's just so captivating to watch. It makes me sad this was the very final film he collaborated with Paul Thomas Anderson and was nominated for his final Oscar for before his passing in 2014. I miss him so much. That man was such an outstanding talent. And that processing scene where Dodd was interviewing Freddie Quell, that entire sequence, phenomenal acting. I know it's a divisive Paul Thomas Anderson movie, and I know there are some people who don't love this movie or find it too strange, but I think it's a really good film that's worth checking out. And last honorable mention, the number 6 film on the list, Phantom Thread. This is a beautifully crafted romance drama with Paul Thomas Anderson's top-notch storytelling and craftsmanship. In his second team-up with the great Daniel Day-Lewis since There Will Be Blood, he's phenomenal as expected as Reynolds Woodcock in what was said to be his final film before retirement, and I think he came out with a later film recently, Anemone. So who knows if that would be his last film or not. He does take long gaps of acting, and he does an exceptional job as this uptight who is meticulously crafted with his work in fashion design. But Vicky Krieps is also amazing, giving a subtle performance as Alma. And with the romance, I really wanted to see where things would go. And it just felt like an unconventional romance of how Reynolds really loved Alma. Johnny Greenwood's score is lovely and one of his best. Of course, this is a movie about fashion design, so the costume designs are obviously incredible and deserve that Oscar win. And has amazing cinematography with many shots that are framed in my mind. And with those honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into the top 5 list. Coming in at number 5 is Punch Drunk Love. If you're wondering, what was the movie that proved that Adam Sandler is actually a great dramatic actor? It was this film. And it was quite a risk for Paul Thomas Anderson to cast Adam Sandler to step out of his comfort zone for once. And to make an Adam Sandler comedy after Boogie Nights and Magnolia, it was like, wait, you're gonna do a film with Adam Sandler? Yeah, good luck with that. And also crazy to believe his two films in the 2000s decade both star Adam Sandler and Daniel Day-Lewis, and I think he's the only director to ever make a movie with those two different actors, but he made them work. And this was at the time where Adam Sandler comedies in the late 90s and early 2000s were at their height. And Paul Thomas Anderson said how much he loves Adam Sandler comedies like Happy Gilmore and Big Daddy. I enjoy those movies too. And he was willing to give him a chance in a dramatic role that was perfect for him, and to shine in this role in a whole new light that we haven't seen before from The Sandman. Now, sure, this was quite a risk for a dramatic Adam Sandler film. Would the risk actually pay off and get to see the best out of him? Or would he just be miscast and doesn't really have the dramatic acting chops? Fortunately, while the film was a box office bomb in its theatrical run, this was a critically acclaimed film, even the first Adam Sandler movie to receive a positive review from Roger Ebert, and Sandler was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Motion Picture Comedy or Musical, to which I felt like he deserved an Oscar nomination for this film, although I felt like either 2002 was a competitive year for film and he wasn't able to get in, or Oscar voters just saw Sandler as too much of a comedic actor to nominate him. But seriously, I felt like he deserved an Oscar nomination for this film. And little Sandler trivia for you, the only Adam Sandler movie to be ever nominated for an Academy Award is Click, for makeup and hairstyling. Like, that got nominated. The only Adam Sandler movie to ever do so. Not this movie, not even Uncut Gems, his best performance, and that film didn't get nominated for anything, which pisses me off, or even Jake Kelly recently, he was getting Oscar buzz for that. But anyways, Sandler in this movie, he was incredible, and what a breakout for him to step out of his comfort zone to prove his dramatic skills. Sandler is phenomenal as Barry Egan, and what was my favorite performance of his until I saw Uncut Gems and that dethroned it. Barry does keep intact the Sandler charm and sweetness, but with a fragile, furious, and vulnerable side that makes him sympathetic and multi-layered. Especially sympathetic when his toxic sisters are emotionally abusing him and he goes to their party and they keep calling him gay boy. Like, dude, just stop. Those sisters are the worst. Or when the tension increases and when he gets scammed by a phone sex hotline. And he wonderfully shares great chemistry with Emily Watson as Lena, who is also great in the film, who serves as the main source to give him purpose. On story, this may sound like an Adam Sandler comedy and basically like an art house Sandler movie, but Paul Thomas Anderson beautifully crafts such a surreal and delightful romance film. It has enriching themes, alluring atmosphere, a unique musical score, and of course, Sandler as well as the rest of the cast are on top of their game here. Punch Drunk Love is a fantastic exploration of anxiety, dysfunctional family, a variety of emotions, and how love can heal the most anxious and vulnerable people to become stronger. Oh, and like with Paul Thomas Anderson films, Philip Seymour Hoffman does have a supporting role in this movie, and for his limited screen time as the mattress businessman, he's so great, and just that phone call scene alone is hilarious. This is one of my favorite romance movies that's wonderfully told, and also being enchanting and delightful. And probably my favorite scene in the film, just when he goes visits Lena in Hawaii and trying to reach her, and the use of "he needs me" works like a charm. I'm over the moon that Paul Thomas Anderson gave Adam Sandler a huge opportunity to shine as a dramatic actor, and to avoid being typecast and to prove he's more than a comedic goofball. Just give him the right script, a reliable director, and he can shine, and he did. And I'm so happy this was not a one-and-done dramatic role from Sandler, and he would continue to prove that in Reign Over Me, Uncut Gems, still his best performance. Hustle, that's an underrated Sandler Netflix movie, and he's great in that, because this is definitely up there with Uncut Gems as one of Sandler's best. And also being one of my favorite films of the year 2002, up there with Spirited Away, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, and Catch Me If You Can. Coming in at number 4 is Magnolia. This is a dense, complex, ambitious, and fascinating work of art from Paul Thomas Anderson. And this is a mosaic centered on multiple characters and storylines, and they all connect to each other by the end. With the storytelling used in Pulp Fiction, and this film was used as an inspiration for one of the best films of last year, Weapons. And it's that intriguing storytelling with multiple characters that I love. And this is such a comprehensive 3-hour movie focusing on different characters' issues, guilt, and family problems. Now, I think this is a 3-hour movie that does warrant the 3-hour runtime because of how comprehensive it is and how many characters are in this movie. And just a stacked lineup of incredible actors. William H. Macy is the older genius quiz kid. Philip Baker Hall is great as the game show host. John C. Reilly as a cop, Philip Seymour Hoffman as a nurse to the show's older producer, and Julianne Moore as the producer's wife. And they're all terrific in this movie, selling their own flaws and issues, guilt. And I was surprised Julianne Moore wasn't nominated for an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. She was amazing here. But if I were to choose my favorite character, storyline, and performance in this movie, that would definitely be Tom Cruise as Frank T.J. Mackey. He is incredible here, and is actually my favorite Tom Cruise performance. Born on the 4th of July being a close one. And despite Cruise playing such an unlikable character, he gives him such a charismatic and alluring screen presence done in classic PTA long takes. And another thing, I love the interview scenes, how it start out and spread out throughout the entire film. Just the interview scenes where he starts off charismatic, energetic, and confident, but then later you start to see more tragic, troubled, and damaged side of the character. And more information just gets more revealing as the film goes on. And in the climax, the scene where Frank T.J. Mackey, on his father's deathbed, both his resentment and breaking down crying. And you know Cruise killed it in that scene, and Philip Seymour Hoffman also starts to get emotional. Oh, and hey, those two would go on to be in a Mission Impossible movie together, and Philip Seymour Hoffman played the villain in Mission Impossible 3, which is still the best villain of the series. So also awesome that Mission Impossible 3 is still a great one in the franchise and a Magnolia reunion. But seriously, I think that scene has Tom Cruise's best acting. And in my opinion, I haven't seen the Cider House Rules where Michael Caine won his second Oscar, but if it were to me, I would choose Tom Cruise as my pick for Best Supporting Actor of 1999. Either him or the late great Michael Clark Duncan, who was heartbreaking in The Green Mile. Oh yeah, Jude Law and The Talented Mr. Ripley, that's another great one. But seriously, if Cruise were to ever win an acting Oscar, it should have been for this movie. And it's a well-balanced and engrossing way of editing these different storylines to make it equally in-depth and engaging. And there is a scene in the middle of this movie where it bounces different storylines and tension increases. And it's Stanley, this genius kid on a quiz show, and he really's got to use his bathroom. And I was like, oh no, is he gonna piss himself? Oh no. The host is also ill and dying of cancer, and he collapses in the show. And just these other storylines are going on and more problems, and the tension increases. That is one of my favorite examples of cross-cutting in film. That in sequence, it's a masterclass. Magnolia has crucial themes on trauma, guilt, forgiveness, and they're amazingly explored here. And it's that point in the story where everyone is at their breaking point. Now, if you've never seen Magnolia, I don't want to ruin it for you, but the ending of the film, oh my god, I did not expect it to go that way or what happens. It's just unexpected, jaw-dropping, but also thought-provoking, and could definitely see why they did that. And just an amazing finale to end the film on. Magnolia is a brilliant and multi-layered film from Paul Thomas Anderson. From the acting, the dialogue, the storytelling, and the editing. One of my top 5 favorite films of 1999, and certainly a great one from Paul Thomas Anderson. It is a long film, but an amazing one at that. Coming in at number 3 is One Battle After Another. And now to the most recent film in Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography, and I believe this is his biggest and most relevant film he has done yet, where this movie is equally funny, intense, impactful, and thrilling. And this right here is a top tier Paul Thomas Anderson that continues to prove he still got it as an incredible auteur. And what makes One Battle After Another such an incredible film in his filmography? The cast ensemble here is stunning across the board. Not a single weak performance. Leonardo DiCaprio is just brilliant as Bob Ferguson. And this definitely ranks as one of his funniest performances since Wolf of Wall Street. He does an amazing job at playing 2 different sides to his characters. In the first half of this movie being capable in his revolutionary days, but then later in the film when Willow becomes a teenager, he becomes this like pathetic and aimless stoner. And he becomes washed up and trying to catch up with them when Colonel Lockjaw comes back as a threat. And everything about this character comedically, dramatically, physicality, Leonardo DiCaprio absolutely nails and continues to show this man is one of the greatest actors ever. Oh, and the phone call scenes of What Time Is It? In my opinion, That just might be the funniest scene in any Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Just from Leonardo DiCaprio's line delivery, facial expressions, and just... oh my god, just him trying to remember it just cracked me up. And just him getting more and more frustrated that he can't remember it, just... that scene is comedy gold. And Benicio del Toro is so great as Sensei Sergio, and he's just such a likable character in everything he does to help Bob. And his last scene of A Few Small Beers made me love his character even more. Seriously, he just might take the award for the most likable character of any 2025 movie. And Chase Infinity, what a revelation in this movie. This was her film debut, and for her to hold her own against Oscar-winning actors like Leo DiCaprio and Sean Penn, she killed it. And her facial expressions and the peril she's in throughout the film, you do feel for her. And I can't wait to see what movie she does next. She was seriously snubbed for Best Actress, although I have a feeling that maybe she didn't get the nomination due to category fraud. I viewed her as more of a supporting character than a lead, and also maybe a newcomer bias with the Academy. But either way, Chase Infinity, she's incredible in this movie, and she definitely has a bright future. And Teyana Taylor, I found her performance even more impactful on a second viewing. Despite only being in the first half of the movie, she made the most of it. And with her conflict and being committed to the revolutionary group, but also her involvement with Colonel Lockjaw at the beginning of the film, and she sells her conflict excellently. And she's also fiery and captivating. And speaking of Colonel Lockjaw, let's talk about Sean Penn in this movie. Holy shit. He is tremendous in this movie, and I'd say this is the best Sean Penn has been since Milk, which won him a second Oscar. And he is the frontrunner to win Best Supporting Actor, and I've said this ever since I saw the film. If this wins Sean Penn the third Oscar, I'll be so happy, because my word, Sean Penn, he was incredible here. And he just plays such a sick and repulsive person. And there were some moments in the beginning of the film that honestly made me so uncomfortable. And his commanding presence and attention to detail with his performance, like how he walks and how he bites his lip, like... and just every scene, Sean Penn gave it his all, and yeah... I could definitely see him winning a third Oscar for this, or if Delroy Lindo upsets, or would be happy if Jacob Elordi wins. He's my pick for Best Supporting Actor. But either way, Sean Penn, he's one of the greatest actors. This film proved that this man has won 2 Oscars for a reason. And this is definitely one of Paul Thomas Anderson's best directed films. His direction here is outstanding. Of course, the long takes he uses are terrific, and he knows how to give this movie a chaotic energy that's relentless. And I didn't know he had this in him to make thrilling action set pieces, but he did, including some of the most riveting car chases I have seen in a long time, one involving a bank heist early on in the film, and of course, the climax at that desert was just riveting. And that had my heart pounding. I was like, are Bob and Willa gonna reunite? Just have them reunite, please. I'm getting anxiety. The amazing and beautifully framed cinematography that makes this feel grand, and I love the use of VistaVision like The Brutalist. This film definitely deserves Paul Thomas Anderson a Best Director Oscar win. And he's been sweeping this category, and he's definitely gonna take it. And the screenplay is definitely one of his best he's ever written. A great balance of hilarious comedy, and I would probably say this is his funniest film to date, but also finding that tonal balance of tension and hard-hitting social commentary, where it makes this film more impactful in how it talks about immigration, oppression, and diving into these character flaws and their conflicts, and how the past decisions can affect us in the future, and how extreme both sides are willing to go. And the piano score is also one of my favorite musical scores of last year, and just like the piano notes of doot 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 doot, I felt like that was matching of the chaotic energy of the film. It was unconventional, but I thought it was perfectly used. And this movie has such a great and well-paced momentum. At 2 hours and 40 minutes, I was not bored. I was just glued in from the opening frame to the last frame. This is definitely one of my top 3 favorite films of 2025, up there with Sinners and Marty Supreme. And hey, if this wins Best Picture, or Sinners does have momentum after SAG Ensemble and the most nominations at 16, so could that win? We'll see. But if this does win Best Picture, since it seems to be winning more of the major precursors, so I'll be happy if this wins Best Picture. And it's about time Paul Thomas Anderson wins an Oscar, and this movie definitely deserves him one for that. Coming in at number 2 is Boogie Nights. Hard 8 showcased how promising of a director he is with his debut film, but a year later, with Boogie Nights, Paul Thomas Anderson goes above and beyond as a definitive, talented filmmaker. And luckily, Hard 8 was not just a flash in the pan moment. This man, he knows what he's doing behind camera. Now, it would be daunting for any filmmaker to tackle a movie about the porn industry, but what Paul Thomas Anderson created in Boogie Nights with a fantastic direction, screenplay, memorable characters, and cast ensemble, and has such an engaging story, and this proved that this man was willing to take risks on such a subject matter, and made an incredible movie that stood the test of time in his filmography. What makes Boogie Nights a top-tier PTA film is the stunning cast ensemble top to bottom. Mark Wahlberg in what still is best performances as Dirk Diggler, a young man discovered by Jack Horner as a dishwasher at a club. He has ambition, determination for being something great and to make it big as a star. And despite living with an emotionally abusive mother, and their argument scene was just hard to watch, just what an awful mother. But with his rise to fame and winning awards as the next big thing in adult films, then he becomes this huge, egotistical, narcissistic diva who is just so insecure about another rising star that Jack Horner gets. But then by the end of the film, when he reconciles with Jack, and it was just so heartbreaking to see where he becomes later in the film, but then does get a satisfying redemption arc. And what I also believe is Burt Reynolds' best performance in his career as Jack Horner. Thriving to create high-quality adult films and seeing Dirk as the next big thing. And just a fantastic performance and how much he gave it his all despite turning this role down 7 times because he was uncomfortable with the subject matter until he agreed to do it. And I'd say this movie revived his career when he really needed a film like this. And also hearing that he wasn't too fond of this movie, and Reynolds didn't really see this movie as a highlight of his career, although I definitely felt like it was, when his career was in trouble with box office flops and bad attitude, and I'd say this movie gave him a career boost. And even better, this movie earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and he won a Golden Globe, and was considered to be a frontrunner to win, although he lost the award to the late great Robin Williams for Good Will Hunting, and I agree with that award. I think Williams deserved it just for that "it's not your fault" scene alone, but it was so great that Reynolds got the nomination, and his only Oscar nomination in his career before he passed away in 2018. Rest in peace. But the rest of the performances are all fantastic. From Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman, John C. Reilly, William H. Macy, Don Cheadle, Heather Graham as Roller Girl. The dialogue just sounds natural and authentic, focusing on engaging story and characters, and the character arguments just feel natural and intense. And Paul Thomas Anderson's direction is electric, capturing the late 70s immaculately from the costumes, hairstyling, and music choices like disco. And it's evident by his long opening take at the club. And this is also one of my favorite movie soundtracks ever, with some of my favorite songs there. And PTA injects such a vibe in the first half of this movie with the late 70s, showing the highs and lows of Dirk Diggler's success in the adult film industry. Now, breakout star until things get serious once we get to 1980, where an unexpected tonal shift with William H. Macy's character, and there's a running gag involving his wife, and I was like, why does his wife keep cheating on him? What does this lead to? And what it does lead to, oh God, I did not expect that at all. And it's just a total dark turn, where I was like, okay, this is the point in the story where things get serious. And I felt like it wasn't just out of place. I felt like the movie built up to it, where Dirk and Jack have a falling out, and Dirk just goes on with Reed to explore other career choices and other conflicts, such as Julianne Moore's character losing a custody battle, and Don Cheadle struggling to get a bank loan for his stereo equipment store, and because of their backgrounds in the porn industry, that does affect their lives. And that tonal shift, when things get more dramatic, it feels earned. To not really condone the characters' actions, but just to see where they're coming from, where they're struggling with. It just becomes a more engaging, character-driven ensemble film. Boogie Nights is a phenomenal film across the board and would be in my top 20 favorite movies of all time if I were to really think about it. The acting, direction, script, the music, the editing, the story, where it all goes. And this right here is a 90s classic to me, up there with like Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction, Fight Club, and so many others. And if you've never seen Boogie Nights, please check it out. And would be my second favorite film of the year 1997 behind Good Will Hunting. Just a fantastic movie. And I'm so happy this movie put PTA on the map as a fantastic filmmaker and earned him his first Oscar nomination for original screenplay and 2 acting nominations for Moore and Reynolds, and many more Oscar nominations for PTA to come until his time to win. And yet, it's my runner-up. There is one more movie left, one movie I haven't talked about yet. What is the best Paul Thomas Anderson film, in my opinion? Let's talk about that film right now, and there will be a #1 pick. And #1, my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film is There Will Be Blood. This movie is a masterwork of filmmaking. Paul Thomas Anderson's most exceptionally crafted, profound, complex, ambitious, powerful, engaging, and consistently mesmerizing. This is a superb crowning achievement in Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography. Now, right out of the way, what I gotta talk about for There Will Be Blood is, of course, what makes it noteworthy: Daniel Day-Lewis. Him as Daniel Plainview in this movie. What can I say that already hasn't been said ever since this movie came out? Now, this is saying a lot, because Daniel Day-Lewis is one of the most legendary actors of all time, but his role in There Will Be Blood as Daniel Plainview is his most towering, captivating, layered, astonishing, and his most memorable performance in film, and easily his best role yet. And this role is a testament to how much of an extremely dedicated and one-of-a-kind actor Daniel Day-Lewis truly is. And just how he's selective with his film picking and character transformation. And this role won him a second Oscar for Best Actor. Like, duh. Of course he deserved it for this movie. Don't even tell me who the nominees were for that year. Just, he 200% to 300% deserved that Oscar for Best Actor. And 5 years later, he would win a third Oscar for Lincoln. Of course he deserved that too. And he is still to date the only actor to ever win 3 Best Actor Oscars. Like, that just shows you he's the GOAT. There Will Be Blood is an incredibly fascinating rise to fall story of an early 19th century oil man, and how much Plainview is driven by greed, ambition, and seeing his competitive side. And he's also ruthless, chilling, misanthropic, and self-centered with a superiority complex. And how much he says to a man who he thought was his brother, and seeing that resentful side of him just make him a despicable person. And now he views everyone else around him as less than him. And it's a flawless performance that has went down in film history as one of the greatest acting performances of all time. That entire baptism scene with Eli and Daniel Plainview, like, that scene alone deserved him the Oscar. And also seeing Daniel Plainview go toe-to-toe with Eli Sunday, those are the biggest highlights of the film. And between their ambitions with Eli's preaching and Daniel's business, and just by Daniel's facial expressions, you really start to see how much he resents Eli and sees him as a false prophet for religion. And just how that grows even more, leading to the ending of the film, to which I'll get to later. And speaking of Eli Sunday, Paul Dano, playing both twins, Paul and Eli Sunday, he is incredible in this movie, and still my favorite performance of his. Not saying a lot, this man is such an underrated actor and consistently giving phenomenal performances. Like Little Miss Sunshine, Prisoners, he was amazing as the Riddler in The Batman, he was terrifying in that. The Fabelmans, he's also terrific in that. And how phenomenally he plays different sides to the Sunday twins, where Paul is more reserved when he first meets Daniel, and then Eli, who has a church and he's preaching and has his boisterous ways of doing his sermons. That's a testament to Paul Dano's range right there. And his sermons are the biggest highlights of his best acting here. And seriously, he should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Seriously, how does Paul Dano not have an Oscar nomination yet? He was close with The Fabelmans. Just, Academy, when are you going to nominate Paul Dano for something? Please! And this movie came out a year after his breakout performance in Little Miss Sunshine, which he's also great in. And I'm really happy this movie further proved his talents as an actor. Oh, and what Quentin Tarantino said about him was ridiculous. Oh, Paul Dano is such a weak, uninteresting guy. He is weak sauce. You seriously paired Daniel Day-Lewis with the weakest actor in SAG-AFTRA? Austin Butler would have done a better job. Like, Austin Butler was doing Nickelodeon Disney Channel sitcoms around in the late 2000s. He wasn't Elvis or Dune 2 Austin Butler yet, just Paul Dano killed it in this movie. Tarantino, you're one of my favorite directors, but what you said about Paul Dano and trashing him, you're full of shit. Seriously, Paul Dano, protect him at all costs. He's a phenomenal actor with range. On a technical standpoint, the production design looks absolutely outstanding. And no surprise, this is the same production designer, Jack Fisk, who would go on to do movies like The Revenant, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Marty Supreme recently. The cinematography is staggering and so many incredible shots in this movie that are beautifully framed and great use of lighting like fire, and the amazing and unique musical score in this film. And one of my favorite musical scores in this film was during the oil rig explosion, which is one of the most intense scenes I've ever seen. And that was when Daniel's adopted son, HW, goes deaf. Just that deafening explosion, the tension, the musical score, and the instruments used. That entire scene made my jaw drop, heart pound. What an incredible sequence that was. And another one of my favorite scenes, if not my favorite scene of the film, the finale between Eli and Daniel, just enthralling. One of my favorite endings in film. Just an unforgettable way to end the film. So satisfying and so quotable too. Stop crying, you sniveling ass. Stop your nonsense. And of course, I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. Drainage. Drainage, Eli, you poor boy. And him throwing Eli on the floor and just attacking him and him mocking him for his preaching and just him like throwing bowling pins. It was just like, oh, that scene. I am the third revelation. I am the third revelation. And topping it all off with one of my favorite final lines in films and cuts to credits, I'm finished. And I loved how it leads to interpretation of what really happened to Daniel after that. What could more of his downfall be like? Who knows? There Will Be Blood is a powerful exploration on greed, the American dream, in what I think is Paul Thomas Anderson's masterpiece. My favorite film of the year 2007, and 2 and 3 would be both Ratatouille and the Best Picture winner No Country for Old Men. Although No Country for Old Men I still think is a terrific movie, and happy with that winning Best Picture. Although I would have been jumping with joy if this won picture, director, or adapted screenplay. But hey, it won 2 Oscars, not just Best Actor for Daniel Day-Lewis and Best Cinematography too. That also deserves it. It's one of my favorite films of the 2000s decade, and one of my favorite films of all time. There Will Be Blood, exceptional. And that's my list for my top 5 favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movies. I'm so happy I did this list and caught up on his movies, because this man is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, and he's just still consistent at making great and memorable films, and I can't wait to see him win Oscar Gold Sunday night for One Battle After Another. He definitely deserves it for being in the industry since the mid-90s, and it's his time. And I'm also excited to see what he's planning next in the future. Whatever that may be or how long it will take, I can't wait to see what his next film will be. So I would like to hear from you guys. What are your favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movies of all time? Top 5? Want to rank all the movies? Number 1 pick? Let me know in the comments below. I'm excited to hear your picks. Did you enjoy this top 5 list and want to see more videos like this in the future? If yes, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here, and don't forget that notification bell for my next upload in the future. It really means a lot. My social media links will be in the description down below. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok, and if you'd like to see my written reviews, I do have a letterbox, so if you'd like to follow me on there as well. And until the next video, I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.